Today I'm going to be unboxing this guy right here. This is the Sonic Mighty 14K Revo from Phrozen. It's quite a handful and it's quite a big printer, so yeah, let's get going on this guy. Trusty knife, make sure to cut yourself many times. That's how you become a man. If you got all your fingers, I don't know, by the time you're like 60, I don't know what to say, you're not adventurous enough. Ooh, this is a box within a box. Look at that. That's kind of a pretty box. We're just gonna do it this way. Today we're gonna unbox the Sonic Revo 14K from Phrozen. Let's get to it. This is something I'm seeing more and more often, especially with these larger printers where they're designed to be slid out like this. Maybe I should have done the top first to get rid of some pressure. And then it would have slid right out. Look at this guy, it's a big sucker. This is big. I actually don't know if it's not quite as big as the Anycubic M3 Premium. That one's probably a little bit bigger, but the build plate, we'll see if they're about the same or not. Boom. That's a good sized goodie box right there. They're usually not quite so fat. It's also interesting that the build plate comes pre-installed on the printer. Normally it's kind of free floating around. Don't forget your VAT screws. Little shorty little fellas right there. That's also a shorty VAT for some shorty VAT screws. Look at that. Look how thin that is. I probably would have preferred slightly taller. It's kind of nice to be able to hold a little more resin. And now it's clean. The first thing we're gonna notice is that there's a little heater right here. What I like about the heater that's in the chamber versus one that's on the VAT, they're both good, but I prefer the chamber a little bit more. And the reason for that being is if you're printing, let's say in a garage in the winter, and you start the print during the day, and as nighttime comes, the temperature is going to reduce by quite a bit. And heating up the VAT will prevent a lot of that, unless, again, you're in a really cold area and maybe in a garage where the temperatures outside is going to fluctuate by quite a bit. If this produces enough heat, it will prevent that by keeping the entire chamber warm. Just that the entire chamber is like a thermal battery, and it does give you a little bit more headroom. The next thing that's nice about heating up the entire chamber, as the print finishes and it's hanging there, the warmer resin that's on the models will drip off, and there'll be less resin on the model that you have to clean off during your cleaning process. The other thing I noticed about this printer, which is really interesting because I don't see this on the other flagship printers from the other brands, is this one still does come with the lead ball screw. Now, if you don't know the difference between the lead ball screw or just the regular Z screw, is that these ones don't have an issue with backlash. So backlash is basically where there's a little bit of play whenever the motor has to turn on or turn off. And that's so, because nothing's perfectly square, so there has to be a little bit of play, otherwise it'll bind. The ball screws they don't need the backlash nut, and they're a lot stronger, a lot less play, just a lot more accurate and a lot more durable, and they'll last a lot longer. Let's see, let's check out the build plate here. I've also noticed how they're all going to the same plastic nub, like all the vendors, is it? I guess they're all shopping at the same stores. We've got this really nice texture in here. I love how creative they're all getting with their laser etching. It's a lot of fun. But let's compare this. Here's a size comparison. It's actually pretty similar, just a little bit smaller. But you can just see the difference of these two printers. What's interesting is this printer's rather expensive. The M3 Premium when it came out was like $700, and that was there's inflation and all that fun stuff. But yeah, let's see how much room is in that. Am I gonna drop this on my, no, look at that, there's plenty of room there. How does that feel? That feels pretty good. It's a nice thing right here. So do you see how this is hollow or this is open right here? This isn't gonna be milled. There's some mill work here for sure, but for the most part, this will be extruded out, cut, and then maybe a little milling on top. That's a lot better than casted. If you ever find one where it's maybe closed, and you look inside, there'll be casting marks. The problem with casting is it's very inaccurate. And so when you put this on, if there's any inaccuracies or buildup from a cast, it can go on slightly different or go on kind of rough. It's much better than some other ones I won't mention on this video where they're cast. And the reason why that's a big issue is because this is level. If this thing moves around, if there's a bump in here because of a casting issue, and it's slightly different every time you put it on, we always want to look for either milled parts or extruded parts over casted parts, especially on key elements like this. This entire part right here is a monoblock, where the part going around the screw, the lead screw, and the part bolting onto the two rails is one solid chunk of aluminum. There's other ones where it's just like a chunk of metal, and then this, the the arm coming out is actually just bolted to the chunk of metal that's bolted to the rails. So it's multiple pieces. Definitely not as strong or as reliable as a solid chunk of aluminum would be. We've got a nice camera here. Well, we got the camera nice, I guess. Wonder if it would be, what would be possible. I haven't seen it yet, but I haven't looked for it. So if you've seen it, let me know in the comments. Would it be hard to upgrade this camera to a higher quality one? And then you have the hook up there, and everything there is the only thing you need is just a camera with a bigger sensor. I don't know, that'd be interesting. Let's see, we've got the light in here, which is nice to have a light. That does help the camera. Now, some resins can be cured under normal LED and even incandescent lights, like if you get the Siraya Blue. I would test it on that one. If it will cure Siraya Blue, there's a few other resins that will cure, so let's watch out for it. If that ends up being the case, you just probably don't want it on while you're using those specialty resins that cure really, really fast. But for pretty much all of the resins, I'd say 99% of the resins, I haven't found them to cure under normal LED or even a normal incandescent. But the blue is one that does, so I'll try that out. When you first get a printer, the static is going to really cling to this lid, and it's going to make it a mess. It's going to cling to the lid, and it's going to drip down, and it's going to get all over your printer, and it's going to be hard to clean up. So if you're new to 3D printing and you don't know that, that's a thing. Take some plastic wrap and maybe just kind of put it down, and then when the static causes the resin to kind of jump over to the sides, it'll hit the plastic wrap, and it'll be really easy to clean off. And I've also noticed that just having the plastic there, you'd think it would add more static, but it seems to add less. So I haven't seen it happen as much, though I do still see it happen. Let's find the I/O. Oh, look at that, right on the front. Well, that's taken how many years? I know there's some printers that have it, but it's not very common. You see it right there on the front. Now let's take this off. That's pretty nice. I don't want to touch it with my hands to make it all, gross. There's one thing that's nice is there is kind of a built-in handle here. I've seen some complaints about some of the printers that don't have the ability to grab it, but it's pretty easy to, we have 3D printers, we can print something and mount it there. It's kind of the fun of modifying your printers with prints. Here's something that's really cool. So this back plate right here is all metal. If we look at the top, you'll see there's two bolts, here and here. These bolts are actually bolted into the tower. So what makes a good printer good? The stability of the tower is very, very important. And there's two things that cause that. The thickness of this top plate right here, and because right here between the LCD and the screw, it's relatively narrow. And if it's narrow and thin, it can bend right there. So the thickness of this plate can be very important about that. The next thing is, of course, if you can anchor the tower down to metal that's then anchored down to the top plate, that gives you more stability. And this thing is, so I bet this is probably very, very stable. That's a really nice LCD, nice and big. There's still a gap around it, so even though there's plastic on there, maybe it's plastic, it's not glass. It'd be nice if it was glass. But at least it's not open LCD anymore like some of them, so it's hard to clean off if you get your grimy fingers on there. But I would still probably take some tape, and the same tape that's used here on the LCD, it's called LCD tape. You can buy it off Amazon, and you can buy it in different thicknesses. Just put a little strip around it. This thing will be perfectly sealed on the front, and you won't have any issues. Let's do our box of goodies. Thank you for your order. That's kind of nice. Let's see what's in here. You can get 15% off if you register. Sandpaper, I guess that's for the build plate. I really wouldn't recommend sanding your build plate. I guess you would sand it if you scratched it up so badly that there was burrs on it and you want to remove the burrs, but I wouldn't sand it like this. What I would do is get a granite or glass, and I'd take some mineral oil and put it on it, and then put your build plate down and let the weight of the build plate and just kind of move it around in circles a little bit with the mineral oil. 320 and then move to 400. That's about as fine as you want to get. You're not trying to polish it. You still want some grip in there. Here's this. If you've seen my videos or you follow me at all, you'll know I don't like these. There's a smaller one that I like that isn't sharp, that will prevent the whole gouging your build plate and creating burrs you have to sand off later on. Same with the plastic one. That's really nice. Like, look at that. That's so much fun. I don't use this, but I like the way they packed it. It's almost like redesign this and print it out of PLA or something like that, and then I could use it to like store all my tools on or something like that, like on the wall for my 3D printing area. Your Allen wrenches, important. Your USB, which generally these things aren't very good. You're going to want to replace them. This is a Scandis, so it's actually probably better than a lot of the ones we get that have no name on it. So these are still good to open up on your computer and look and see what's on it. Probably it's where you're going to find the manual. Maybe some warranty and registration information as well. All right, we've got, oh, look at that. They've included the For our fellows across the pond, I don't need that, but this one's nice. Now, there's another thing that you'll notice about this one is there's no power brick. It's another trend I'm seeing a lot lately, and I really enjoy it. No power bricks. What we're getting is the power brick is in the chassis, and that way we won't have this stupid thing floating around. I have enough printers, enough power bricks. I have to label all of them to know what goes to what. Not having to do that is pretty nice. A little miniature funnel. It's really nice to include it, but I found these ones are too small. It's easy to spill, and they don't quite drain enough. I actually got a filter for a car, for doing oil in a car, and it's a little bigger, and it's got one side that's kind of comes up. That one's really nice. It kind of holds the whole filter, and it's also big enough that I'm using it, I can kind of clean it out. This one, if there's a drip in there, it's gonna be hard to get out, so it's nice that they include it. I wouldn't recommend using it. And here's the infamous carbon cleaner thing. I wouldn't use these. They don't work, and that's already been tested many times that they don't work. I don't need to test that again. Just go look it up on the internet. You'll see units that are, I don't know, 100 times bigger, 300 times bigger, put into a room with a VOC detector, and they just don't clean it out. You got to vent. But if you are going to use it because you like it as a security blanket kind of thing, you want to open them and replace them. Oh, there we go. And this one doesn't look like it's in plastic. So the reason why they come in plastic is because this activated charcoal absorbs chemicals. That's what, so it's not a filter like you think of where the air goes through and it's filtered. It's an absorptive material, so when the air goes through it, it absorbs the toxins, which is why you need a lot of it. And if there's a lot of toxins, it absorbs them really fast, and then they're pretty much kaput. This one's not in plastic, so it's just been absorbing toxins its entire trip over the ocean on a big stinky boat. So I don't think it's probably gonna work as well, but it doesn't work anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It's interesting that what I didn't see in this one, which I normally see, is those stupid doctor's masks. They didn't ship it, which is good because no false sense of security. They did give you some gloves. A good starting point, you always wear gloves. But I would recommend getting slightly thicker gloves. These are probably 2 to 3 mil. You're gonna want 4 to 5 mil for the thickness of the gloves. Just a little more tear resistant and a little bit more resistance against some of the cleaning chemicals are actually the more dangerous thing, especially when the cleaning chemicals get saturated with the resin. Those two things together, they can leach through some of the gloves, so a little thicker, the nitrile gloves is how you're gonna stay safe. So let's say that your VAT got damaged, but it's relatively in good condition and you're curious, so like, well, how tight should the VAT be? So one thing you could do is you could get your phone, you could get a little application that can monitor the frequency. And then capture that. And then when you replace it, you kind of have an idea of what the manufacturer does with it. The next thing is, if you don't do that, you've already had it for a while, and let's just say you just put a little nick in it and you want to replace it. What I would do is unscrew this, and that will release an inner chamber. Now the inner chamber still has the release film attached to it. You can then take that and you can find different objects around your house. One thing I did is I took a stack of Post-it notes, and you just take that and you put it over it until your stack of Post-it notes is about the same tension on the FEP. That's when you know you've matched the spacer that the manufacturer used. There's our max fill line that goes in the back. Get our 2 little screws here. I don't have it with me right here, but normally what I do is I take a little bit of the same lube that I use on the rails, which is like a super lube. It's a silicone-based grease, and I put a little bit on the screw just so that it kind of acts like a dam so that resin can't get in here if it spills. It also just keeps it moving nice and well for a long time. About the 14K. So they're going to be more work on your printer to slice, and the sliced files are going to be much larger. Just like trying to play a video game at 1080p versus 4K or crazy 8K. The same thing does apply to the 3D printing world. Just because it's not gaming doesn't mean there's not a lot of data that has to go through to process that screen. Look, so there's the local storage. So it does have local storage. I'm pretty sure you can transfer stuff from the USB to the local. Let's actually test that real quick. Yeah, so there's a bunch of things on here, including the software, .ctb. So there's a few files. So I can copy. So I can delete, print, or copy right here. What I would probably do is copy it first. Looks like this is the Phrozen calibration print. Local storage, it's right there. Now I'm gonna print this real quick, just a few things. One, let's see how noisy it is. And let's also see, it's actually relatively quiet. We'll see when it turns on, when the fans kick on, when the LED light turns on. I also wanna see what is it like to edit the print? All printers, all, have the ability to change either most or some of the settings during the print. And sometimes there's secret settings that can only be accessed while you're printing a file, but changing them changes the way the printer behaves forever, not just on that one file. Let's see if that's a thing on this one's. You can turn the heater on and off, that's nice. The failure detection. Failure detection, see, I don't know how I feel about that. If I'm printing a bunch of objects and one of them fails, I don't want the printer to stop. Could waste an entire build plate because one thing failed, so I might keep that one off. There could be a chance where it falls off, like if it's hanging and it just falls off into the vat and then, it's off to the side. That could damage it, but I don't believe failure detection will get that. That would be like a pressure. Probably the residue detection might detect that one, where it's pushing down, it realizes it's pushing down too hard, there's something in the way and it stops. Autofill and then auto pump. Those things you need the pump for to get working. I don't have the pump attached, so they are disabled for me, which makes sense. See if there's any other hidden stuff in here. Tells me how long it's gonna take, remaining time, the name of the file. I do like it gives me this information. Sometimes I'll load up a printer with a whole bunch of prints and I'll start printing them and I can kind of forget where I'm at in my process, especially if I've got multiple printers. Having the name up there, and what I'd like to see actually is that the name, when the print is finished, if it displays the name and says, this print was finished, that way when I get there, I can clean it off and then move to the next one and remember where I'm at. It's interesting to see if this goes all the way up. I do like it when it goes to the top. Even though when it goes to the top, you have the chance of that resin being statically charged to the side more easily. That's a setting you can change, like on the M7 Pro, the Anycubic one, you can actually write on the front LCD, and you can only do it while the print is running, tell it whether or not you want the printer to go to the top when it's finished or stay relatively low. And the reason why I like it going to the top, even though it increases the chance of resin dripping, is if I take this guy off right here, but what I do is I like to tilt it down like this. And you can see when it's here, when I tilt it down like this, I'm gonna pour all the resin right here on the front, and we're gonna go up. Oh, I love that. Look at that. Every manufacturer, the slider thing, if you're not doing it, you're wrong. That's all there is to it. It's a little slow in the movement. I'd prefer if it was a little bit faster, because especially if I can't override it to go to the top, I'll have to do that every single time I go to clean off my build plate. Take it off, and again, we're kind of like looking to see how much is over there. So it's a lot better, a lot easier to work with, especially if there's something here hanging, and I can kind of do like this, or I can drip it for a few seconds, just get some of that off, and then take it over to clean it. See, now what I've heard is that this does, even though this has an auto level on it, it does have the option of adjusting the Z offset. Because what the Z offset does, oh, look right there, Z offset. So it's currently set to 0.15. Oh, I love how it tells me. I've been asking for this for a long time. So the Z offset is where this thing's gonna start printing when it does layer 1. And if it goes down too far, it's gonna put too much pressure on your release film, and that pressure is gonna stay there for the entire print. If it's up too far, you'll have to increase your bottom exposure time to the resin to kind of grow, build up, attach to the build plate, and actually hold to it pretty strong, which is a waste of resin, and it damages your LCD over time because it's those really, really long burn-in times. So being able to adjust the Z offset for layer 1 to where it's at the right height eliminates all those issues, and it's really nice, and it's been deleted in pretty much every single printer with auto leveling, except for this one. It's the only one that still has it, which is awesome. All right, enough about leveling. Vat cleaning, we've all seen vat cleaning before. We know what that, if you don't know what that is, look it up. Light on, off, that's the internal light right there. Like I said, I'll test whether or not that actually works. Heater, we can turn it on. So I wanna see, does the heater run during the entire time? Looks like it might set the heater timer to preheat your resin before printing. Yeah, but I want it to keep going during the print. I'll have to check on that one, because if it doesn't go during the entire print, then it's not super helpful, but that would be a firmware update if it doesn't. History shows me what I've printed, which is the test print. Let's see here, error log. Oh, it's cool. Social media, I don't care about social media. Network, of course, if you connect to the network, you can do remote print. Remote print on this printer for Lychee isn't out yet, but we will include it, including the camera. Run a vat clean, operate the leveling, and start and stop a print, and adjust the print while it's running. Those are the most important things on there, and it's got every single one of those. I'm now going to use this printer, and I'm also going to try out this brand new resin that Phrozen sent me. It's a very highly elastic, like make a basketball or bouncy ball or something out of, or gaskets. So we'll give this a try, we'll see how it works out. I'll also do other resins on this printer as well, just to get an idea of what it's like compared to the other ones. And then what I'm going to do is this is the last printer that I had to unbox. M3 Premium, or the M7 Pro, the Saturn IV Ultra, the Revo. These are the kind of the premier printers of this generation. I want to put them side by side, and I want to compare them to the premier printer of the previous generation, which is the M3 Premium. Put them all there and kind of give you guys a rundown after using them for a while, after helping users on Discord and Facebook and Reddit, troubles that they're having with them, whether they're user error troubles or whether they're manufacturer defects or design flaws. I've already been doing that, and not so much of a spoiler. Some of the printers have some really big manufacturing defects and flaws in them that are impacting a lot of users. So I just want to know all that before I do a review, and that way when I give you, hey, what's the best printer of this generation, I can give you an honest opinion about it. And when I do this, I'm not going to say, well, it's your decision, you decide which one's the best. No, I'm going to tell you this one's the best for these reasons, this one's second, this one's third. If you made it this far, congratulations. It either means I was somewhat entertaining or you skipped to the end, which is fine. If you would, please like and subscribe. It helps out the channel quite a bit, as well as you'll get a notification when I drop the big reveal I just talked about, or the big review I just talked about. And with that, thank you for watching and have a good day. Right here. So which means when you tell this thing to go home, home is at the top, not at the bottom, because the sensor's up here. We've seen that introduction since the auto level stuff. I'm not sure why it has to do that for auto level. Something about the design, but whatever.